Welcome to our Unit 9 supplemental video. In this video, we're going to go over how to build 8 queries using the aggregate functions and group by statements. So the first one we need to build is number of books published by New Moon Books for each month in 2010. We need to show month in text and number books. Okay, so again, we're going to start by creating the query. And the tables that we're going to need that have that information, just like in the query where we used to query design that we used to build joins, would be books and publishers. Okay, and Access automatically connects those two by the foreign key pub ID. And let's see, what information do we want? So probably pub ID, publisher name, and number of books. So, and also the date. So for the books, I think we can use the title and pub date. Okay, so if we run this as is, we get this basically, right? But we only need to see the ones that were published by New Moon Books. So going back to design and adding criteria, New Moon Books to filter it out. Let's run it again. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. We got books published only by New Moon Books. There's five of them. But we need to actually show the number of books, right? So how do we do it? So if you notice, there's an integral icon here that means the total. So if we click on it, it will basically add the line at the bottom that would say the total under the results that will say the totals. And this is where we can do our aggregation. So we can actually do the count on the publisher, but it will count the rows. It's not going to count the unique publisher. So if it would count just the unique publisher name, it should give 1, but in this case it counts the number of rows. We can count the titles, it's going to be the same thing, but when we get to the date, remember that the date is it's actually the can be represented by the number, right? The number that starts count from certain date. So we can do, we can do the maximum, minimum, we can average, but in this case we're just going to keep it at count, right? So this is something that you can go ahead and paste as a result, and then there's the SQL that you can also transfer. But I want to show you a different way of doing this query as well. And it's up to you if you want to add that one as a result as well. So let's actually save this one as Unit 9, books published by New Moon Books 2010. All right, so let's create a new query. Again, it's going to be books and publishers. Okay, and what I want to show here. So again, let's bring down publisher name, and let's bring down title. Okay, now if I click this here, notice how it adds the totals, total line over the sort, right? Oh, and by the way, in the criteria, of course, I need to put the new books. All right, but now that we have ability to group by, to aggregate, so since we're concentrated it by the Newman books, I'm sorry, filtered it by the Newman books, we can now group by the title to get the month, right? So we're gonna keep the group by because we want all the titles to be grouped by the Newman books. But here we are actually going to change to count. And a fancy way of changing the title to make it more self-documenting, we can do label, add the label, books. Okay, and it's going to look like this. And finally, we want to have the date, right, as the third column. I'm sorry, month rather than just the date. So, but that information would be contained in the pub date. So we're going to bring it down here. But we don't want just to publish the date. We want to have a month extracted out of it. So how do we do that? Let's use the function month name, and it's going to extract basically, well, first of all, we're going to use the function month to extract a month in numeric format from the pub date. We're then going to use the function month name to convert that number into the text. Okay, and we're going to keep it group by as well. And notice that it automatically created a label, Access automatically created a label expression1 because it's a calculated field, and it took away the table because it's an expression. So let's rename exper1 to something more self-documenting, like month published. Okay, let's save this one as books published by Newman Books 2010 2, second version. Actually, yeah, looks more or less close. All right, and let's run it. There you go. We got 4 books published in July and 1 in October. Now, and this is what you can also, you don't have to, but this is something that you can copy and paste into your assignment. Now, if you look at the SQL code, you'll notice that in the group by, excuse me, in the group by statement, because we specified group by in both expression and the pub date, you have to group by with all these in the group by statement. Okay. The other thing is that notice that we're not using the when clause, because when actually in SQL statement when is evaluated first, but then by then you don't, and then select. But in other words, when will not know what to filter on. So for this kind of situation, we have having clause, and in having we're doing pretty much what we would do in when. Basically filtering it by just one publisher. Right, so again, if we run it, it's going to give us results, and that's our first query. All right, for our second query, we need to we need to write a query that would show what was the highest royalty paid for a book and format it to only show 2 decimal places. All right, let's close this. Okay, so for the second query, we will need royalty paid and the book. So that's pretty much it. So we need the books. Well, first of all, we need to create a new query design, and we're going to use just the table books. Okay, so what do we need to create here? First of all, since we're doing an aggregation, we're gonna use the totals to create the totals line here, and then we're gonna create a calculated field. So essentially, we need to calculate a maximum of year-to-date sales. Actually, delete this one. Let's just bring this one here. So we need to calculate maximum of year-to-date sales times the price, right? So that will give us the total actually, I'm sorry, times royalty. And we're going to divide it all by 100 to make sure that there are only 2 decimal places. Now I hit tab and notice how it quickly took away the books, converted into expression. And for label, we're going to use highest royalty. We're going to change it by from group by to an expression because we're not grouping anything. And we're going to run it. All right. So this is the highest royalty paid for a book. I'm going to save this as 9 highest royalty paid for a book. Okay, let's build next query.